with Boba Fett, he shed his old life as a bounty hunter so that he can create and make room for a new life with the Tuskens, and then eventually as the crime lord on Mos Espa in that town. But he didn't let go of everything, right? He's still tough as nails. He's still a complete badass and will beat you up if he needs to. You're listening to
Path of the Jedi
with your host, Ronnie Cruz. All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this amazing adventure. And yeah, welcome to the second episode of the new year of 2022. So thank you guys for tuning in, for helping me get back on track, right? Because I did have a significant amount of time off. Not that I was just sitting around doing a whole bunch of nothing, but, stayed very, very busy. And I'm glad, though, to be finally back in the saddle recording these weekly podcasts for you. So since this is only the second episode of the year, let us recap what we've been doing thus far. So we kicked off the new year with doing an episode by episode discussion on the new series, The Book of Boba Fett, Star Wars, The Book of Boba Fett. And for those of you who are not aware of what that is, that's a new show that just came out the last week of December on the Disney Plus. It's Star Wars' latest property that they released here on the Disney Plus platform. The streaming platform. So it's been a big hit. It's a character that I absolutely love. For those of us who are, the original trilogy fans who grew up with the original trilogies, The New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, Boba Fett was always one of those characters that was such a big deal, even though he only had, a handful of minutes of screen time. From the original trilogy. So he left such an indelible mark on the fans that it just grew from there, right? It just grew from there to, fast forward today. Now he's got his own live action show played by the amazing Tamira Morrison, who, a little bit of trivia here for you guys, originally played Jango Fett, Boba Fett's father, actually, in the prequel trilogy, the movie Attack of the Clones. So it's really awesome to have Tamira back in the saddle as Boba Fett, and it's been an amazing show thus far. Now, as I mentioned last week, for those of you who are Star Wars fans and aren't quite caught up yet, well, Path of the Jedi is, I think, about 2 episodes behind the actual show, Book of Boba Fett, 2 or 3 episodes, so you have a little bit of a buffer. But if you're not caught up, or if you haven't started the show yet, you may want to go ahead and dive in, because we could be potentially sharing some spoilers with you guys here on Path of the Jedi as we cover episode by episode. So today we're going to be covering episode 2. So just be aware of that. If you want to go back and get caught up, you still have time. I think episode, as of this recording, or when this recording releases, episode 5 is going to be released. So you got a little bit of a buffer window there, so you can get caught up. That said, we talked about Chapter 1 last week, and just to recap that, what I was, and I don't know if I did a great job of communicating it, but what I was trying to get across were the themes of roles and identities, and the balance between who we are and who we want to be as individuals versus everybody else's expectations of us, right? Like the people around us, the community's expectations of who we should be, right? Or at least what we think the world thinks who we should be, right? So like, and it's a weird thing, because we have to at some point or another interact within a community structure while also maintaining our own individuality. And there are some communities, as we see and saw in episode 1 of the Book of Boba Fett, where that balance is very, very kind of hard to navigate. And as we get to meet our main character, Boba Fett, we see him like trying to navigate and find that balance, right? Being himself and staying true to his own identity and his own values, his core principles, versus surviving and navigating the world around him and the society and the communities that he's interacting with. In chapter 2, which is entitled The Tribes of Tatooine, these themes continue on, right? They persist through this chapter, which is great because, it allows us as viewers to really start to get to know Boba Fett better as he is himself getting to know his new identities, his new roles in this new lives that he has, right? He's getting to know himself better as well. This show is so awesome, guys. Again, if you haven't watched it and if you're not a Star Wars fan, it's a good reason to start watching, right? Like for me, this chapter is so incredibly fun, right? It's so incredibly fun. There's not a whole lot of dialogue because a lot of the show takes place in the flashback, which involves the Tuskens, and they don't have any spoken language that we can understand, right? So there's not a lot of dialogue exchange, but there is a lot does happen, right? And for those of you who are fans of Westerns, right? Westerns, I mean, as a genre for film and television, they've been around since pretty much the beginning of film and television, right? And so Star Wars, this show and Mandalorian in particular, they've done such a great job in continuing that tradition. I mean, Star Wars has reinvented the Western without reinventing the Western, right? In this episode alone, in Chapter 2, Tribes of Tatooine, you have your classic saloon fight, you have a high-speed train heist, and you even at one point have Boba Fett stealing the bad guys' horses. And of course, they're not really horses, they're speeder bikes. They're, wheelless, floating motorcycles, basically, for those of you guys who don't know what speeder bikes are. But it's the same thing, right? It's like stealing the bad guys' horses. So, it's an amazing and beautiful reimagining of the classic Western, and it plays out very much like that, both in his flashback sequences as well as the present time sequences. So again, for those of you who are Western fans, this is a great time to get into Star Wars if you haven't gotten into Star Wars yet. Thematically, what I wanted to talk about today was really to continue the conversation about identity, roles, right? And especially as we take on new roles and new identities. In chapters 1 and 2 of Book of Boba Fett, pretty much that's what Boba is doing right now, right? He's trying on new identities. He's trying to figure out who he is now that, his life as a bounty hunter is over when he fell into the Sarlacc pit, when Jabba the Hutt was killed, when all of that pretty much imploded on itself, exploded literally, right? Because of Luke and the gang, Luke Skywalker and his merry band of bandits, right? Boba Fett's life had to be revised, right? He had to start from scratch. And so, even if you look back on episode 1, him bursting and coming out of the sand is imagery very evocative of kind of a rebirth. It's a figurative, violent rebirth of into his new life, right? And even after that, as he's stumbling and passing in and out of consciousness on the sand, he and the Jawas steal his armor and literally strip him of his outer skin. Boba Fett is shedding his skin, right? And he's starting from scratch. He's starting anew again into this new rebirth. And so moving from there, he's got to figure out who he is and how to navigate the world around him, right? What his roles are in this new life. And so thematically, I love that, especially this time of year, right? Like the new year, typically for most people is symbolic of new beginnings, right? And oftentimes we try new things. This is a time for renewal and exploration, right? Letting go of last year and exploring what's possible in the new year. So in that context, let's talk about some things that can help you through this evolution into your new roles, right? Into these new phases that you're moving into, right? And the very first thing that I have to mention, and we've been talking about it already, is shedding the past, right? Letting go of the past, letting go of identities and things about yourself that may not necessarily serve and support who you want to be and where you want to go in the future. future, right? And we all have those things. We all have those personality traits or character quirks that we think are part of us and a part of, that are who we are. But I want to tell you guys, nothing has to be permanent, right? Like you can evolve, you can change things, you can let go of these definitions that you might have been holding all your life, right? Again, I think we've talked about this in past episodes. A lot of our personality traits we developed in early childhood, and we've carried them ever since. And they may not necessarily be serving us right now or supporting the things that we want to achieve, but we still have them with us. And so knowing what those things are and then working on shedding those things and letting go of those things is very, very important. Well, the question then is, well, how do I know what those things are, right? How do I identify things that are holding me back from achieving the vision and the goals that I've set for myself? And my answer to that is the easiest way to identify those things is number one, listen to your own language, right? Listen to your self-talk, and if you describe yourself as having certain limitations, like in network marketing, for example, what the things I hear the most, well, I don't know enough people, or I'm just not good at selling, or I'm kind of shy, I'm not good at talking to people. Those are personality traits that you developed as a child, probably as a mechanism to protect yourself from maybe getting yelled at by an adult, or getting laughed at and made fun of by your classmates, right? Those are things that may have served you from those kinds of hurts and pains when you were younger, but obviously they don't serve you now as an adult. And so you can let go of those things, right? You don't have to affirm those things. And again, the way to kind of identify those is just listen to what you affirm about yourself, right? One of the things that I used to affirm about myself was exactly that. Yes, I am an introvert and I'm shy. I don't know enough people. And that's really, none of that is true. I've met thousands of people over, the last 5 to 10 years, especially in my career as a network marketer, through the last decade. I've definitely met thousands of people in that time. And so, I've stopped affirming that I'm shy. Yes, I'm an introvert. Sure, that I like to be alone. I like my solitude, but I have no problem meeting new people whatsoever. And so, that's just an example of letting go of who I thought I was in the past, letting go of those traits and that I thought were who I was, and to allow space, right, to allow room to become something new, to become something else, and to create and fill that vacuum with a new personality trait, with a new habit. And that's, again, exactly what Boba Fett did, right? He was kind of forced to, right? That life was completely, again, exploded and imploded, and he had to leave that bounty hunter life in the past. And so that left him a completely blank slate, right? Hashtag blank slate. I've been talking about blank slate for I don't know, 6 months now, maybe for the better part of a year, with various groups that I mentor. And blank slate is really the best way to be, right? In the present moment, if you can be as blank slate as possible, then you can invent and constantly reinvent yourself in the moment so that you can create whatever future you want to create, right? So that you can chase down the infinite future potentialities. But you can only do that if you're a blank slate in the moment right now. And I say that because I'm talking about shedding the past. Like, the more of the past, our past selves that we hold on to, the more we anchor ourselves to the past results, right? The past outcomes that we already have. Again, if I had continued to own and claim and anchor myself to the notion that I'm a shy individual, then I would never have been able to build a massive network marketing business, right? I had to shed that so that it made room and allowed me to start owning a new personality trait that is good at meeting new people, that is good at making friends, that is good at having conversations, right? That isn't a completely awkward jerk in the elevator or out in public, right? And like again, it's no judgment on who I was in the past. It's just that it no longer serves me, right? So I thank it. I thank and have gratitude for that, because again, it was a protective mechanism, and it served me for a phase and a period in my life. And then I let it go and moved on, right? Moved on and started developing new personality traits, new habits that did and continue to serve me today. Which leads me to the second point, the second principle that I want to talk about, right? Like I developed new habits and new personality traits, new character things that support where I want to go and who I want to be, right? The vision and the goals that I want to create, and understand that since evolution is constant, growth is constant. It doesn't just happen on the new year, right? You're gonna always come across new challenges and push to the next horizon, right? You're always going to set higher and higher goals or new visions for yourself. So you're always going to be growing. That doesn't mean you're going to be a new and different person every time you set a new goal, right? For the things that support and help you get to who you want to be, to where you want to go, you don't want to just flush everything out, right? Flush the stuff and let go of the stuff, shed the stuff that doesn't support you anymore, right? And when you develop and take on the things that do support you, like I said, for me and specifically with network marketing, I started affirming the fact that I'm good at talking to people, I'm good at having conversation, I'm good at meeting new people and making new friends. Just because I started, let's say, podcasting last year doesn't mean that I'm just going to shed all of that stuff that was helping me and that continues to serve me today, right? It's not a complete reboot, right? Right? I didn't go out and buy a new brain and start from scratch, right? So you want to let go of stuff from the past, yes, but stuff that wasn't supporting you and that doesn't support you moving forward, and keeping the stuff, right? You want to keep the good stuff, because on this growth journey, you are going to pick up stuff that's going to make you stronger, right, along the way. It's like working out, or it's like going hiking every day, right? You're going to build up the muscles that support you on your longer and longer hikes, right? So that you can have higher and better views each time you go out in the woods for a hike, right? And so that's the same thing with this principle. As you take on new roles and new identities, you're going to shed the stuff that isn't working or that doesn't work anymore, and you're going to keep the stuff that does, right? You're going to keep the stuff that does, and ultimately what ends up happening is you start stacking on, you build a good foundation and you start stacking it on one on top of the other, and your growth journey, as well as the results and the outcomes that you get in life, start to really compound on top of each other, because you have one good habit, one good characteristic stacked on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, and you're continuing to flush out and reevaluate every, let's say, month, every quarter, and look at the things that don't work and just let those go, so that you can make room for new stuff, right? So it's this constant kind of evolution in letting go of old stuff that doesn't support you, so that you can make room for new stuff that does, while also keeping in mind that you're keeping the stuff that does still serve you, right? With Boba Fett, he shed his old life as a bounty hunter so that he can create and make room for a new life with the Tuskens, and then eventually as the crime lord on Mos Espa in that town. But he didn't let go of everything, right? He's still tough as nails. He's still a complete badass and will beat you up if he needs to, right? Like he took care of a bunch of thugs in the saloon that were picking on the local townsfolk, and he's still tough as nails as the crime lord, right? So he kept some of the stuff that can continue to help him on his new journey and in his new roles and identities, but he let go of the stuff that would have held him back, right? That would have held him back. So that should give you a better idea of some processes and principles to help you as you navigate into a new role or a new identity, right? And especially as you work towards new visions for this year, new goals for this year. The last thing that I also wanted to talk about that really struck me from chapter 2 of Boba Fett was the fact that there will be, as you work to grow yourself, work to improve yourself, and set your sights on new and better things in your life, there will undoubtedly be people, or even entire groups of people, right, communities that will resist you making changes, right? Resist you becoming and evolving into a newer version of you, and that's totally normal. I want you guys, that's totally normal. If you watch this episode, this chapter 2 of Boba Fett, you see that the existing crime structure, right, the existing crime and corruption structure in Mos Espa is very much resisting this new daimyo, this new crime lord Boba Fett, and wants him either to conform into the existing ways of doing things or die, basically, right? Like many attempts have already been made on his life just in these first 2 chapters of the show. So there's always you're gonna always meet change with resistance, especially from people who already have an idea of you, right? Who already know you or have some acquaintance, have some level of acquaintance with you, right? Because again, change is scary, guys. Change is uncomfortable for a lot of people, and when they see you making a change, it makes them uncomfortable, right? So I want to let you know, don't worry about it. It's okay. Still love those people, still care about those people, but do your best to not buy into whatever criticisms or opinions they have about you making a change in your life, right? Because ultimately it's your life, right? And you have to do what's best for you and your loved ones, and making these kinds of changes and growing yourself so that you can have and do and be more and live a more fulfilled life and live a happier life ultimately is the goal, right? And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Again, you can love them still, but don't necessarily allow that chatter into your headspace, right? All right, keep fighting on. Be tough as nails like Boba Fett, and you'll be able to ultimately rewrite yourself into a newer, updated version of you, so that you can ultimately achieve the goals and the visions that you set out for yourself. Also, too, one last thing, something that can really help you on your growth journey is as you face criticism, as you face naysayers and things like that, that's natural. And so to counteract that, something that can really help is finding a community that can support you and lift you up as you go through this growth journey. And we do have one such community. It's called Path of Growth Community, and you can find it on Facebook. It's live. It's a private community, but you can search it. You can do searches, or you can message me directly, and I can add you to the community if you want to be a part of it. It's a very, very supportive community. We do weekly calls. Right now, we're doing a Think and Grow Rich discussion group, with which I've talked about before here on the show. And so here's a real quick clip of last week's discussion group. So quick to a decision, slow to change your mind. Right. Because I mean, and don't get me wrong. I've made some wrong decisions, and I'm okay with that. Like, that's part of the game. And I think that's another avenue or added dimension of procrastination is people are afraid to be wrong. Like, who cares? Yeah. That's more meaning. Again, that's more meaning than there needs to be. Don't worry about being wrong. I'm wrong all the time. Excuse my language. Sorry, but it's true. I am. Oh yeah, there's kids in the house. Sorry, JD. I'm wrong all the time. I am wrong all the time, and I'm okay with that. And I'm okay to adjust. But like, I'd rather be wrong having made decisions than never be right because I didn't make any. Quote me on that. Man, that was good. I just came up with that. That was good. Guys. Seriously. Yeah. That was a good one. We can end the call there. And good night. That was me. I was a little bit on a roll there. I think I had too much caffeine that day. But yeah, that's just a snippet of how those calls go. And it's completely, again, open to everybody. It's at no cost. You can join us for free. Come find us. It's facebook.com/groups/path of growth. I will leave the link in the show notes of this particular episode. But yeah, if you have any questions about that, you can email me at info@pathofthejedi.com and with subject heading Path of Growth. But beyond that, yeah, let me know what you think of this episode. Evolution, changing roles, taking on new roles and identities, and setting new goals and visions for yourself. That whole process, right? So let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you with either an email or an MP3, and I'd love to play that here on the show. Go ahead and send that to info@pathofthejedi.com with the title of this episode in the subject heading, and I will check it out. Of course, you can find Path of the Jedi on all our socials, Facebook and Twitter. It's POTJ Podcast on both of those things. And if you haven't yet done so on whatever platform you're listening to this show on, please rate and review. That helps us a tremendous amount. It helps us get found. It helps us get searched. And it helps get the word out, right? It helps get the word out. If you like what you listen to here on a week-to-week basis, chances are there's somebody else that's going to like it, and giving us a rate and a review will help them find us much easier. All right, for this week's shout out, I want to recognize my dear friend and mentor, Mr. Daren Falter. That's right, Daren Falter. Daren and I have, known each other for 13 years, I want to say, maybe even 14. It's been a while. But Daren is one of the founders and the senior vice president of our company, Yoli, the company that I'm a part of as a network marketer. And yeah, I mean, this guy is amazing. He's just, not only is he's exceptional, right? Like he's an expert in the field. He's a legend in the field. He wrote a book on it, right? It's called How to Choose a Network Marketing Company. So he knows what he's talking about. That book is sold all over the world. And I've just felt really, really fortunate and blessed to have him in my life, to be able to call him a mentor for one, and then to be able to call him a friend. I can't really communicate enough how much of a privilege it is to have him in my life. Most recently, he's been really working with me very closely in the recent weeks, just to help me with the things that I need help with. I mean, it's so easy to reach out to this guy who, has probably a million other better things to do, but he never hesitates to give help when asked, and that's just one of the many reasons why he today remains such an inspiration, not just in my life, but in thousands and thousands and thousands of people's lives. So Daren, I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you do. This week's shout out goes to you. All right, well, that does it, guys. Thank you again for tuning in this week and every week to Path of the Jedi. Your support, guys, and your listenership means the absolute world to me. And I really feel like we're starting to get into a stride here on the show. So, keep listening, because I can guarantee you that it's only going to get better from here. We'll catch you again next week, guys. So until then, please be well out there, be safe, and as always, may the Force be with you. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited, and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.